Good evening, everyone. Today is January 25th, 2022. It's the Olivet City Council meeting. Could we please take roll call?
Sure. Councilmember Rick Knox. Oh, I'll come back. Councilmember Missy Waldman.
Here.
Councilmember Greg Carl.
Here.
Councilmember Rick Knox.
Here.
Chairman Pro Tem
Here.
and Mayor.
Here.
Okay. Mayor, there were no written communications that I received. There was one, but I think it'll be handled later in the meeting and at the public hearings. And if you'd like, I can proceed to my report.
Please do.
Okay, let me get here. I'm gonna share screen too. Okay, are you seeing the city council report?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So now, well, we are ever so close to having our new fire truck. As you recall, supply chain issues have delayed the building of this and delivery of this new vehicle. It was initially expected in September. It might have even been August. And now it is now set for late February. Fire trucks are interesting in that they're really designed, many of the aspects of the truck themselves are designed by the firefighters. So kind of where the cabinets are, what kind of cabinets you have, what things you'll keep in there are all really very specific to the department. So we're excited about that. Yeah. Olivet, the fire department's been taking advantage of the vacant homes at Irvington and Rhyme. They were performing a lot of different training exercises there. Here, this is a picture of them practicing a forceful entry. The homes are scheduled for demolition to make way for the apartment complex, and I believe we just received the demolition is going to occur in like sets of 6 homes, and I think we received the demolition permit or the application for the first set. There's a little bit of delay getting the gas lines decommissioned there. The Olivet townhouses is going to be it's a redevelopment across from the new city hall on the west side of Dealman Road. It was before the Planning Commission on January 6th for an introduction. On January 20th, the petition was formally introduced. Many of the properties they're all under contract and they are being closed upon as throughout this month. And at the commission, there was some public input into the project, and that's always good. That's what we hope for. There is, if you see this, this is 1014 and 1004 Dolores Avenue. On January 6th, the Planning Commission was again informed of a redevelopment proposal there. And what that would do is it would create, oops, I'm sorry, I didn't move forward here, did I? So this is the redevelopment lot, and what they would be looking to do is turn it into 3 single-family homes. And so there are a number of issues there. Well, not issues, there are a number of things that they're going to have to take into consideration. One being that that kind of divides here is actually part of a stream. And so there is going to be some stream bank bisecting that occurs at this area. But again, another smaller redevelopment project that we're kind of excited about seeing. The Olivet Police Department are now utilizing load-bearing vests to carry their equipment. These essentially are just like a vest, it's worn on externally, so they still have their bulletproof vest on underneath these, and they are used to carry all the equipment, to hold all the equipment that police officers have, that traditionally they use their duty belt for. And the idea of this is that it distributes the weight of the equipment better. And so it puts less strain on the hips and on the lower back of the officers. In fact, when I was talking to Officer Dertinger to get this photo, he was saying that it used to be when he would take off his duty belt, he would have this kind of relief of pressure on his lower back. And he doesn't have that. And he said it's much easier getting in buckles as well. A kind of a fully equipped duty belt weighs about 25 pounds. So it is a significant amount of weight. So these are kind of better for people ergonomically. And thus far, it's been pretty positive feedback from all the officers. Assistant Fire Chief Ron Johnson, I think I said at the last meeting, announced his retirement from the fire department. He's been with the department for 22 years. His last day is scheduled to be February 22nd. And we are working with Ron and his family and such to schedule a retirement party so that we can all get together and congratulate him on his retirement and thank him for his many years of service. Well deserved. We also found out that we don't take a lot of pictures of Ron. This is actually from the groundbreaking for the new communities for the city hall. Had a lot of trouble finding a picture. He's a ghost. We've talked like the last time about the number of openings we've had at the city. Well, we're making headway. Latoya Hoskins was sworn in on January 19th. We had an offer with Latoya for a while. She is, but it kind of just took a while for her to be able to resume the work here. And so we will be hopefully we'll be back in person. And she was sworn in with the official swearing in, but we would like to bring her before the council when you come back to the council chambers. Offers have also been extended and accepted for a police records clerk and the part-time court clerk. Both those candidates are scheduled to begin in February. And once that's actually kind of a little further down the road, we'll be introducing the council to those folks as well. I think at the last meeting, was promoted from a building inspector 1 to the building inspector 2. We are now advertising for the building inspector 1 position. That's kind of a funny job. It has a lot of different requirements and skills, and so you can have kind of a very diverse group of folks who are qualified for that. In response to Assistant Chief Johnson's retirement announcement, we are in a promotional process in the fire department for an assistant chief. And we did have a sergeant leave the police department. And so we are also in a promotional process for the sergeant, and we are interviewing for police officers, as we will have, we have one vacancy. This is the work that MSD is doing. It's the final section of the Lindley Sanitary Relief Project. This is looking at the bike path. Actually, we're looking towards Dealman now, and they have been really clearing out a significant amount of honeysuckle and other invasives. I think I talked a little bit about this, but we didn't really have a great photo. Bruce McGregor took this picture for us. So you can see it's a pretty good clearing. This is all their right of way. So it's their property that they're working on. And they have been working in conjunction with Bruce and with Beverly with regard to, the plan is that Beverly and some volunteers will go in and kind of paint over where the honeysuckle was cut so that so it won't grow back. So it's it's a pretty interesting project. It's the final section. It was a very big and project, as you all know, and we've been really happy with Understall Contracting, who's been doing this work. And we've also talked about this, the trail project at 1190 North, or 1190 Dealman, which is just north of the City Hall. That's the City Hall there, and it's going north towards Dealman Industrial Road. We finally, Bruce again was able to go out and get a nice picture of this, and today it's been fun. We've been noticing people utilizing the trail there on that side. This was funded through community development block grant money, as well as matched by the city, both in terms of money and in sweat equity. We will be going back out there in the spring to conduct some bioswale water retention areas. If you look now, you'll see where it gets kind of wet in certain areas. So we'll be trying to deal with that through native plantings. Upcoming events, we have a bid opening for the general contractor for the park improvements. That's on January 27th at 2 p.m. As you recall, you released that for bid at your first meeting in January. That the Economic Development Commission will meet January 31st at 7 p.m. City Council work session will be February 1st, 7 p.m. The Pension Board will meet February 3rd at 5 p.m. Planning and Community Design Commission, February 3rd at 7 p.m. And the next regular City Council meeting is February 8th at 5 p.m. And with that, I'm happy to answer.
Why are we at
any
5 p.m. and not
questions
7?
that you might
Exactly.
have.
Typo.
I'm sorry?
You said our next city council.
the council
meeting
re-
at
oh, I'm
5
sorry.
p.m.
Yeah, should be at 7 p.m. You're
I
right.
just wanted to see if we
Sorry
were
about that.
awake.
No, yeah, right. I'll correct that. Thanks.
All right, does anyone have any questions for the city manager? Okay, at this point, we'll go on with the council reports. Mr. Carl, do you have anything?
I have nothing to report this time.
Councilmember Waldman, do you have anything to report?
I do. Thank you, sir. Ms. Sondag kind of went over a couple of the things, and I just want to identify that on the Olivet Townhouse development, there will need to be a code amendment with regards to that. And with regards to the 10004 and 1014 Dolores Avenue, there will need to be a text amendment, and there will need to be consideration of the variation in the lot size and approval for the waiver for the watershed that, as she identified, the flow of a creek going back there. Besides those two projects that were discussed at PCDC, 5533 Long Acres Lane was approved for a for design and concept stormwater management, single family home, and oh, and the it was a very long meeting, and so Carlos did a short brief presentation with regard to an upcoming discussion item that the Planning Community Design Commission will have with regards to the short-term rentals. And that's all I have to report. Carlos always gives us a very good summary.
Okay. Councilmember Knox, do you have anything to report, sir?
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
Good evening. I went to the Parks Commission meeting, the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting on January 19th. It's a great commission, and it was a really good meeting. Brian Azcona, am I saying his name right? City manager? I butchered it.
Pretty close.
Okay. Azcona is Olivet's horticulturist. And he gave us a really nice presentation. If people go to the park's website, they can see some of the work that he's done and some of the projects that they're looking for volunteers on, but he gave us an annual progress report on the habitat restoration programs in Warson and Stacy Parks. And it's really amazing to see all that has been accomplished over this last year during the pandemic. Actually, the whole 2 years of the pandemic. It's just so much has happened in that area. And the pictures and the educational information he shared was really par excellence. I also wanted to share that we did I'm not sure if people are aware that the Parks Commission has a group of subcommittees and they meet in between meetings. And the one that we had a report from this past week was the Park Memorial Working Group. And these working groups meet and they did with the new Parks Commission coming up, with the new community center and the revisions in the parks, they went through and they did an inventory on the benches and the plaques, and we have some boulders that have plaques in them, some are aged, and we're just trying to figure out some new guidelines on what will be memorialized, and putting together some policies that then the Parks Commission is going to have me as a liaison, but bring it back to the council to read over and go through. So we'll be dealing with that probably, I would hope by spring. So yeah, and then also just, you know, our monthly update with what's going on with the parks, with the master plan implementation and where we're at. Other groups that are working are groups looking at rental use policies for when we open the new community center, and a fee study to look at what charges we'll have for the pavilion and room rentals and membership rates for the community center. So those are some of the things that they're working on right now. The park master plan implementation, the RFP has been released for the park renovation. There is limited pedestrian access and changed at Warson Park. If people want to see what's going on down below, they have to park up by Grandview and then you have to be escorted to overlook it, with my understanding. And the project manager's dashboard for Warson Park and the new community center are on the website. So are there any questions?
Oh, detail.
Thank you.
Mr. Mann available?
Gonna move on to the financial report. I'm promoting Darren Mann to panelist, and I will share my screen.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Darren.
Evening.
There. So we have our 6-month checkup here for our fiscal year that again starts in July, and some highlights. Our revenues are above where we thought they would be, to the tune of 500,000. The expenditures below expectations, they remain there, 172,000 roughly under expectations. Look at our dashboard. The property tax collections are a little bit ahead of where we had thought in the past, and so it really shaped up that dashboard nicely. Again, with half our year done, you'd expect roughly to be about 50% across the board. So everything is looking pretty good there. On those individual flavors, I guess, of our revenue, sales tax looks pretty good. Oh, I skipped over the dashboard. Now on that next page, we can see the dashboard. We're well in compliance with that reserve policy. We were expected to be at 3.1 million. We're about 3.8 million. And our 1 year look has never really been our problem. It's always been our 5-year outlook. And then for the sales taxes themselves, sales taxes are doing really well themselves, including in that category is the use tax and gas tax that are also doing real well. Gas taxes, as everyone has probably heard, they're increasing, and October would have been the first month of that collection, which we would now see in our December collections. Property taxes, like I said, they're doing well, a little bit above expectations. And then the utility taxes are really hanging in there this year. And that's the first year we've seen this consistently being able to hang on throughout the year. And it's because of those electric gross receipts. Rates did go up, as everyone probably noticed in their bills. And so that calculates into increases for the city. The telecom, they have rarely failed to disappoint, and this year is gonna look to continue to be a rough year. In that remainder category, nothing much to report other than we did have the referred to as the lot 4 of the large development in the TIF district at Olive Crossing. It was issued, and so the permits revenue is well above where we had expected it to be. And that's good news. So on the expenditure side, I've talked about over the last couple months vacancies and that the public safety departments of police and fire largely driving those for the most part those positive variances. From there, I don't have much else to report other than at the end of our year, so every 6 months we do remit our pension tax. While we're right here, and just to kind of flow along right here, and I'm sorry to skip around, but you can see our orange line. This is our 1% sales tax, and you can see it's having a pretty good year. We did talk in December last month that things were, it was a little, we weren't sure where these were going to go. It was our lowest December ever, but it's shaping up to be just fine as one of our, within $100 something of our highest January ever. So good news there. So back to the pension payments with our property tax collections. We collect all the citizens on their real estate and property tax bills, pay into the pension trust for the all of it salaried employees pension plan, and $350,000 was forwarded to the trust in December. So that's the only other kind of highlight I'd say that we'd find in that report there. Yep. So with that, would open it up to any questions anyone has, or that concludes my report though.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay,
Not at this time.
thank you, Mr. Mann.
Okay, Darren stays and gives us the quarterly investment report. I'll share the screen for that.
Sure thing. Last time we talked in October, we had kind of discussed informally to take a look at these rates, and we had looked at our yield curve at that time and decided to go with a 24-month or a 2-year CD. Rates in November did not quite meet where we were hoping to take that risk on that duration. So we left the rung open, but then they did turn favorably in December and then again in January. And so for those reasons, we do have a 12-month CDs beginning to appear on our on this CD ladder. Again, it's not, this goes to the end of December, so the January one doesn't appear yet, but it's exciting to be able to kind of restart this and get squeeze some money out of this idle cash that we have here. But that's all I have to report on there.
Okay. Right now, we're going to be hearing from citizens, and I ask that anyone who does speak, keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And also, please tell us your name, your full name, and your full address. Do we have anybody?
Anybody on Zoom would like to speak, just raise your hand. There is one person who wants to raise their hand. Evan, the one thing I think that if you're gonna speak on the, I'm gonna unmute you. But if you're gonna speak on the topic of the pools, I think that's better left for the public hearing.
Okay,
If that's okay.
that's fine.
All right, great. We'll be there shortly. Don't worry.
All right.
With that, Mayor, I don't see any other hands up. Okay, so now moving on to item number 8, Bill 2965, an ordinance amending Article XVI, accessory structures and uses being part of Chapter 400 zoning regulations of the Title 4 land use of the Olivet Municipal Codes regarding pool site coverage and sizes. This is a second reading. And Carlos Trejo, our Community and Economic Development Director, our Planning and Community Development Director, is here, and I am bringing him over as a panelist.
All right. So I guess we'll be opening this as a public hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi,
Welcome,
Carlos.
Trejo.
Are you going to share the screen, or would you like me to bring it up?
I got the screen set,
Okay,
so
that's
I can
perfect.
go ahead and start the public
Sure,
hearing.
that'd be great.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Carlos Trejo. I am the Director of Planning and Community Development for the City of Olivet. And tonight I have a brief PowerPoint presentation regarding a Bill 2965, which is a text amendment to amend our zoning regulations, which are under Chapter 400, regarding Article Roman numeral 16, which is in regards to accessory structures and uses. Specifically, this amendment addresses pools and site coverage for pools. The goal of this ordinance is the goal of our zoning regarding accessory structures and uses, and the limitations and regulations we have in place is to preserve green space and manage stormwater. We had an issue that was initiated at the Zoning Board of Adjustment regarding a petition for a pool for a lot under 10,000 square feet, which exceeded the coverage requirements that would authorize the size of the pool that was proposed, and it was roughly about 600 square feet. The Board of Adjustment kind of struggled with this, having some consideration of the restrictions that were placed on this lot given its size, but also knowing its limitations. They did grant some authorization to allow an increase or an increment in the pool size, but very minimal, and they were very reserved in that authorization, and requested that the matter be brought to the city's Planning and Community Design Commission for consideration of looking at the coverage for pools, especially how they impact small lots. So on the staff side, we looked at other communities in terms of how they were looking at the coverage of swimming pools on residential properties. We found several communities that exempted the footprint of a pool. In all of that, we consider the pool footprint as coverage, and therefore it is subject to limitations on how much improvement you can do in your backyard. We also looked at the limitations that were placed on the size of pools on individual properties. We have found that a lot of pools were going to the Plan Commission, in which there were, all the issues were fully addressed. So it was a process of going to the commission just to get approval. That reflects that the ordinance was working. We were addressing stormwater, we were addressing size, and there it was just that it was a lack of a better word, an unnecessary process to go through this if there was no value added in through the commission review. So in that discussion with the commission, we looked at the two things. One was the pool footprint and the size of pools and how they're regulated. The intent of this ordinance is to limit the footprint of a pool when considered as site coverage to 50%. So if you had a 600 square foot pool, we would count 300 square feet of that pool as part of your site coverage. This should provide some benefit for some smaller lots and even some of the larger ones in there. The rationale and reason for that was that the pool, in theory, does absorb stormwater. It goes into the tub of the pool, and therefore it's not being limited out. But there's two parts to our accessory structure ordinance. One is, of course, to manage stormwater, which is 50% takes into consideration, but also to preserve green space. And that's why we have caps on the overall size of the pool. The commission was comfortable with the 50%. And then the commission agreed to increase the pool sizes that are authorized under the accessory structure ordinance that gives staff the administrative ability, if a pool meets all the other standards, that we can issue the permit without having to go through the commission review process. This helps expedite permits for our residents. And again, we still achieve our goals of managing stormwater, preserving green space in that process. Part of the review, we looked at the cities of Creve Coeur, Ladue, Frontenac, Brentwood, University City, Clayton. They all varied how they counted pools as part of a surface area on property. We also looked at at our community. Ms. Doty had put together a map using our new GIS software that I identified the different sizes of lots and their concentrations throughout our community. The dark blue ones show lot sizes that are under 10,000 square feet. The appeal that was before the Board of Adjustment was regarding a lot that was under 10,000 square feet in there. So we did an analysis of what those impacts would be. End of the day, the commission decided to just amend the pool footprint as opposed to looking at this at a more holistic approach and seeing how we can increase coverage on properties. The goal of the commission isn't that we're just ending the process here. We're looking at our coverage requirements. We'll continue to look at our coverage requirements and take those things into consideration. But as for now, to address the concerns that were brought by the Zoning Board of Adjustment and some of the issues that we could identify with minimal adverse input was to amend our regulations regarding pool and only count 50% of the full pool footprint. And secondly, to increase the size of the pools that would be authorized for administrative approval. In this case, a lot under 10,000 square feet could petition up to 600 square feet. Prior, it was 500 square feet. Now, the key thing on this to understand is that you could build a pool of any size within the city of Olivet. Of course, there's other restrictions and such, but if you exceed this number here, like the 600 square feet, that means you would have to go before the Planning and Community Commission to get your review and approval. If your pool was 550 square feet, then you could just apply for your building permit. In both cases, whether you go to the commission or you get a permit directly through administrative staff, you still have to provide your stormwater controls, your contour data, and all that other information. So it's not like any component is missing. The commission was comfortable enough, given the past reviews, that the ordinance is working and that staff could take some of this load off of the commission's review process and again, help expedite some of the permitting for our residents. Outside of that, the couple of items that Mayor, if it's okay to enter into the record, that would be our 2006 comprehensive plan, the public hearing notice and the affidavit of publication regarding this ordinance or text amendment that was published on January 10th, 2022 in the St. Louis Countian, the staff memorandum to the commission dated December 16th, 2021, which was part of your packets, the City of Olivet municipal code and zoning map, and this presentation before the council today on January 25th, 2022. I will note that I did receive a letter from a resident that we tried to get out late today in there, but I know the resident is going to address the commission regarding this. This resident was the individual that was at the Board of Zoning Adjustment. Again, they did receive a variance to increase the overall coverage in there, but not as not to the extent that the resident was looking for. That resident was active throughout the process of the commission, attending the various meetings in there. I think in the end of the day, the commission's decision was based that to do a thorough analysis on how to create green, caps on how much coverage or how to maintain green space would take significantly longer. And by adjusting the percentage of what constitutes for the full footprint would be, again, something that we can quickly kind of amend through the code process. That's just part of the issues that the resident was having along with other residents in our community, and get through, because I think overall, again, this issue isn't going to just sit. It's probably something that we'll continue to take a look at and try to balance in that process. That's all I have for the public hearing. Mayor, I'd be glad to answer any specific questions.
All right. Does anyone from the council have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Trejo, if I understood your presentation correctly, what you're saying is that you can administratively approve, let's just take the smaller house, the smallest houses. You can administratively approve a pool of 6,000 square or 600 square feet on a lot of 10,000 square feet. Anything more than that would have to go to the PCDC
That is
for,
correct.
but people can have pools larger than that, is my understanding. It's just, you're going to ask PCDC then to review the specific lot, because things are beginning to get constrained as far as green space and stormwater management. And you think that in that case, it should be reviewed almost on an individual basis. Is that kind of
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else on the council have any questions? Okay, at this time, we're going to open it up to the public for comments. Again, the same rules apply. 3 minutes or less. And please state your name and address as well.
I believe this is Mr. Trainin is interested in speaking on this topic. And I'm going to move you, I'm going to promote you to oh, Carlos, could you stop sharing the screen? There you go, thanks. And I'm going to promote Mr. Trainin to a panelist so he can come over. And as Carlos did say, there was a letter, it came in after 5. I did email it out to you folks. It was from Mr. Trainin, and when he comes on, I'll ask him if he, hi. You're on mute still, yeah. While you're speaking, I can share my screen and show your letter if you'd like, unless you were going to read it. It's up to you.
Well, I prefer not to use my 3 minutes with reading the letter.
Okay. All right. Would you like me to show it while you're speaking?
Well, can people read it prior to versus, I guess, me? I guess.
I already read it. I don't know
Okay.
about- So I don't know
Okay.
about other council members.
I read it too.
Okay, so I guess it's been very stressful for me and my family. Again, sorry, Evan Trainin, 724 Cherry Tree Lane. I'm one of those smaller lots in the middle of Olivet. And when this is my first foray into government, I guess, and trying to get anything changed. But I never thought about the problems to want a pool for my family. And Councilman Carl, I'm sorry, Greg Carl, when I did go to I guess one of the boards to ask for a variance, they wanted to know what was my reasons, why did I need it? And it was very difficult to get them to grant me even a little bit bigger. So my lot is 8,700 square feet. So to put a lot, our original pool was, I think, 550 square feet, and now it's up to about 650, doing some changes. So if I had a 650 square foot pool, I would have been allowed a deck of 220 square feet, which isn't much of a deck at all. It's a slab next to your pool. So now I am putting a pool. And once you approve, if you do approve, the 50% of the pool being counted against, now I have a decent sized pool with a good deck. Very happy with my pool and my deck now. Unfortunately, now, because I have a patio, I either have to remove my patio or as Mr. Trejo has suggested, I could put a pagoda or a roof over my patio, attach it to my house, and therefore I can call it part of my house, and then it doesn't count against exterior, the accessory structure. For me to keep my patio out my back door, I have to add a $15,000-$20,000 expense, which is already on a very expensive pool. Plus, I have to also do the stormwater and all that other stuff that I wasn't planning on when I put a pool in, but I understand the reasons for that. So I'm asking the council, I don't know what the powers you guys have or what the powers of the other committees do, because I thought that committee was the one that could decide that, yes, this is what's going to happen. I didn't realize it goes from them to you to sign off on. I don't know what the correct word is, but assistance in helping me not spend an additional $50,000 just to put a roof over a patio that I have, just so I can keep my house and my patio and my pool, just because I have a lot of 8,700 square feet. I sat through a lot of meetings with other pools with the design committee, and these are all 15,000 square foot lots and 20,000 square foot lots. They all had very nice pools, nice pool decks, and all this great stuff that I was very envious of. And I just want the same thing for my family. So I guess that's all I have to say. Anything you guys can do to help me, I would appreciate it.
May I ask you a question, please, sir? I heard two monetary figures from you, and maybe one was just a Freudian slip. First, I heard you say it would cost you 15 grand, and then I just heard you say 50 grand.
No,
What will it cost you?
To the extent, well, I don't have all the bids yet. A pagoda or pergola, I don't remember, is, you know, a somewhat of a structure that is going to cost me about 15,000. My wife is now saying, well, if we're going to spend that, why don't we put a roof on it? Therefore, maybe we can, you know, doing that now. I don't know if it's 15 or 20. It's a big expense that we weren't planning on a pool that is a very large expense.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Trainin?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Trainin, did you hear that the ordinance would allow you to build a larger pool? I shouldn't say all, but what you need to do is then have the Planning and Community Design Commission review it in case they want to add specific conditions because of the amount of coverage you're going to have. They're not saying this ordinance says, I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Trejo. This ordinance does not say you can't build that pool.
Carlos, would you like to redefine or kind of define the issue?
Correct.
Is this the pool or is it the deck that he wants? He doesn't have a large enough size for the decking he wants around the pool, is my understanding, which is different than what's been asked of my fellow council member.
That's true, Missy, but the way this has been explained, it didn't say divide the actual water area from the deck area. It just says the pool, which I would include the deck in the pool as far as being 50% not counted. But that's only to approve it through Carlos and not the Planning and Zoning Commission. That deck can be bigger, as I understand it. Or the pool itself could be bigger, whatever, as long as PCDC has reviewed it and made sure that any special stormwater considerations or green space considerations are accounted for. So that may lead to some additional expense, but I cannot see the kind of expense where you'd have to put in a pergola or something like that. It might mean another drainage pipe or something like that. That is my basic understanding of the ordinance we're going to vote on tonight. And please, Mr. Trejo, correct me if I'm inaccurate anywhere.
Correct. What you implied or what you described is correct in terms of the size of the pool and what has to go through the commission and what can be done administratively. However, within our accessory structure regulations, there is a cap on how many structures you can have in your backyard, and that is 10%. So for a property that is 8,500 square feet, they can place up to 850 square feet of accessory structures. Accessory structures could include a pool, it could include a deck, a shed, those type of improvements in the property. Before, the full footprint would count against that 10%. What this amendment does is that it only counts half of that pool footprint towards that 10% total.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? Mr. Trainer, thank you for sharing.
I had another question, Mr. Mayor.
I'm not sure, Mr. Trainer, did you freeze? Because I can't see, you have,
No,
oh,
he's-
sorry.
He's
Okay,
very-
I'm here.
he's
all right, I wanted to make sure.
very intently.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question for Mr. Trannon. I don't know if I can be heard.
I can hear you.
Hear you.
Okay, so the letter that you sent to the consul, it stated that the PCDC, when it had voted against Mr. Trejo's recommendation, and that's what's
didn't.
confusing to me.
They didn't vote against it. They just, I guess, just didn't want to do that or just went away from that because they said it was easier to go just to shrink the pool size, which would put, I guess, which would help some of the other people with the slightly larger lots, the 1,200 to 1,500 square feet lots that were looking for pools. I think if you, I think we asked Carlos or Mr. Trejo, am I the smallest lot that is applied for a pool? Am I the only one under 10,000 square feet?
In terms of the examples I had provided, yours was the smallest, I believe. So we do have, I mean, we did have a map or an illustration identifying locations of properties under 10,000 square feet. I think in your subdivision, you're the only property that has applied for a pool.
Yes.
So if I could, Mr. Trejo, this gentleman has been at a lot of meetings. I'm familiar with seeing you, sir. And what I would like to ask Mr. Trejo is, what can this gentleman do at this point to try, if he can even attempt to get what he's looking for? What are his options now?
I think he's followed through and vested through all the options that are available. The commission decision was to ultimately limit the pool coverage to 50%. The commission looked at increasing that 10% cap of overall square footage. Mr. Trainin went through the Board of Adjustment and got that increase just for his specific property to 13.5 or 13.75%. So he raised that increment that would be applied to all other properties within the city. The commission considered that, but the concern was the repercussions of increasing that cap on all properties as a whole, and that they felt that it would require greater analysis to do so. And at that point, again, we were trying to address this issue specifically and get this moving along. And two was whether if we wanted to spend our resources reviewing the cap on accessory structures as a whole. And at this point, the commission's decision is not now. We want to do that, or they wanted to do that. But at this point, there were other items that the commission was trying to address.
So with
Fair
all
enough.
of the efforts that the gentleman has come through, the increments were changed, as well as the pool size of what was considered was decreased to 50%. So these are the two steps that the city has taken, or we should be adopting this tonight, taken in addressing those smaller lots like this gentleman's that want to deal with pools or accessory structures. So he has experienced two potential modifications to allow him to have a bigger footprint of his pool and the potential of the deck, correct?
Correct. I mean, based on that, the 850 square feet that was capped on this specific property has been increased to 1,375 square feet. in there. In addition to that, we're not going to count the whole pool size anymore. So that whatever that pool size was, let's say it was 600, they get an additional 300 to be considered in that process. And it's semantics. I think, you know, the commission at this point was concerned of increasing the overall cap and what those repercussions would be. And we've noted it. I mean, stormwater is it's a big issue in our community. And, you know, while we're doing a better job trying to manage that aspect of it, you know, and we made great strides in how we control that. I think there was concern about changing that cap too quickly without really looking at the bigger picture. And that's where, again, the decision was, you know, in an effort to try to find a middle ground, let's just change the pool size, get that going in there, because it made sense. The pool is not collecting or is not dispersing water, it's generally collecting water.
If the council has no other questions for Mr. Trainin, I'm gonna respectfully move him back to an attendee.
Thank
Are
you.
there any- Thank you so much.
And I guess, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Do you want me to move him or are you gonna ask a question?
No, I'm not going to ask a question. Well, I'm going to ask a question to Mr. Trejo. I don't know if
Okay.
you're on for that. So
We'll just- Okay,
based
let me-
on the facts of the pool, you know, Mr. Trainin wants to build, Mr. Trejo, under the new ordinance, would he be able to build it?
We got closer. We got closer to that original permit that was submitted. He would still be short. Now, we've come up with some other alternatives for him to consider to try to make up some of that increment to get to what that original pool, you know, the issue was not the pool size. It was, well, to some extent, but it was the amount of surface around that pool, you know, in there. Now with the 50% increment, again, you know, and a lot under 10,000 square feet, you know, there's not much to work with.
Right.
So I hope that addressed your question. I know I kind of circled around that.
Well, so what you're saying is the exact plan he put forth originally is, as I understand it, then would still not be doable, but it gives him more alternatives than what he had. I guess I don't understand quite how close it achieves it to.
Well,
him.
way more. I think the original pool, the original 10%, the original square footage of accessory structures was approaching about 1,700 square feet.
Okay,
This lot only permitted 850.
okay,
With the variance that was granted by the Board of Adjustment, that brought it to at least 1,300 square feet.
okay,
By only counting now half the pool, we may have gotten it closer to 1,400 square feet. But no, we did not go all the way to the 1,700 or 1,800 square feet that it started off at.
okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna remind you that I don't see, let me look real quick here. I don't see any other hands up for comment from the public, so you may be at a point where you can close the public hearing and then open up discussion at the council level. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, sorry.
Let's go ahead and let's close this public hearing and up to the council for discussion.
And I will share the screen with the, hold on. So you can see the actual ordinance or the bill in front of you.
Could we go back to, Mr. Mayor, can I have a question for Mr. Trejo? If we're still having discussion?
Uh,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Trail, could you go back to the slide that showed what some of the, you had in parentheses, like what you had asked for percentage wise or feet foot wise, and then the commission changed it to a lower number, like you asked for 600 feet and they put 500 feet.
That was in the letter from the resident. That
Correct.
wasn't a slide.
Yeah, you have that backwards from
No, I
us.
thought it was
yeah.
in one of the slides.
No,
No.
the I identified what the original numbers were and what they were brought up to. On
They
my,
were brought up. Okay, so that's my confusion. Were they brought up or were they lowered?
they were brought up, they were increased.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve Bill 2965.
I don't have that language in front of me, but I will go ahead and make a motion to
I'll bring it up.
approve. Okay,
There you are.
in a minute. I still see you. Barbara Sondag, so there we go. All right, thank you. I make a motion to approve Bill number 2965, an ordinance amending Article 16, accessory structures and uses being part of Chapter 400, zoning regulations of Title 4, land use of the Olivet Municipal Code regarding pools and site coverage.
Do I have a second? Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, can we pull?
Okay.
Oof. I was like, okay. I can't
Maybe
motion
I
in.
was on mute. I
Okay.
thought I was on mute.
I'm gonna poll the council. Councilmember Carl.
yes, I want to make a note, however, that given the current ordinance, that allows 16% accessory coverage on that lot, if I got all my numbers correct. Not including the house, mind you. I know they're small lots, but they also tend to build large houses on those lots. So it still contributes to lot coverage. And so there's a significant portion of space that is taken up here. And as such, I think there needs to be some reasonable limit. Thank you.
So is that a no?
Councilmember
Well, it was
Waldman?
yes. I said yes.
Yeah,
already.
you said yes. I got it. Councilmember Waldman,
Yes,
Councilmember Knox,
Yes,
Chairman Pro Tem,
Yes.
and Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by action of the Olivet City Council. Bill number 2965 becomes ordinance number 2737. Item number 9, Bill number 2966, an ordinance amending Article 4 Land Development Requirements being part of Chapter 420 Stream Buffer Protection Regulations of the Title 4 Land Use of the Olivet Municipal Code regarding buffer and setback requirements. This is a second reading.
All right, we're going to open this up as a public hearing.
Okay. And Mr. Trejo.
Go ahead and share screen if you close yours.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was still sharing. My bad.
Again, Mayor and City Council, my name's Carlos Trejo. I'm the Director of Planning the Director of Planning and Community Development for the City of Olivet. Tonight before you is a public hearing regarding Bill number 2966. It is a text amendment to Chapter 420, our Stream Buffer Protection Regulations, specifically to Article Roman numeral 6, which is regarding land development requirements and the setback along the stream banks. We adopted this ordinance as part of the joint coordination process with the Metropolitan Sewer District. The goal of this ordinance of Chapter 420 as a whole is to create buffer zones along streams for the protection of water resources and to minimize land development within such buffers by establishing buffer zone requirements and by requiring authorization for any such activities. Now, the issue is that we are required under this ordinance that on streams that are protected that are depicted on the United States Geographic Survey maps with a blue line or a dashed blue line to have a stream buffer that virtually is to minimize any land development activity within 25 to 50 feet of the banks of the stream, and then to apply an additional 25-foot setback to that stream bank buffer. So ultimately, you could restrict or regulate the use of property up to 75 feet from the banks of a stream that's been identified in one of these USGS maps, depending on what the classification is set in there. One of the issues we've had with this ordinance as written is that, one, the city of Olivet doesn't have any streams that are depicted in these USGS maps. It's the United States Geographical Survey maps that are solid blue lines. We don't have any specific streams in the city of Olivet that are identified by the USGS. And most of those would be like your continuously running rivers. Even the River Des Peres on the north side of our city limits, since we're at such a higher elevation, it's not considered as a solid line. It's a dashed blue line on the USGS maps, meaning that it doesn't require the 50-foot stream bank protection. It's reduced to 25 feet. We also have some dashed blue lines, or some of these streams, that the stream banks are no longer natural. They've been converted to concrete channels, or they have some gabion cage wall systems along their banks. Again, one of the purposes of this ordinance when it was adopted, or these regulations when they were adopted, was to protect the natural stream bank. But the natural stream bank has been altered. A component of that ordinance is protecting or requiring a setback for something that no longer is natural. And that impacts a lot of properties within the city of Olivet, and we'll show you a map in just a second. And then also on some of these USGS maps, they identify streams in the city of Olivet that no longer exist. Literally, it is fully built over in there. But because they're identified in the USGS maps, they pose problems to our residents and our businesses because they create unnecessary steps to go through a process. And that process usually involves going through the Zoning Board of Adjustment to petition for some type of waiver or variance to that. Since the adoption of this ordinance, we've had at least 4 properties go before the Board of Adjustment to seek relief to the setback, specifically the buffer, which is to protect the natural stream bank, because they abut up to a concrete channel. 3 of these were almost all side by side to each other on Bond Price Terrace in there. And then we've had a couple that were just south of Olive on Kenneth and Kenneth Place, not the subdivision that Ms. Sondak had referred to earlier, but that one will be impacted by these regulations. So the commission had a discussion if there was ways to provide some flexibility for properties that abut an unnatural stream bank that has been artificially modified, like the concrete channels we see extending from 170 along the synagogue through the back of Bond Hills and there, or the ones that we see along Indian Meadows and Dealman Rock Island Industrial. We're providing a buffer to protect the stream bank where the stream bank is no longer natural. That there are other means and methods that we can provide the same type of protections and improve the stormwater as it enters the banks in there. And that's what the second component of this is, to provide alternate means to filter sediments and stormwater entering a stream that's been artificially modified. We found that 4 other neighboring communities have made amendments to the initial MSD ordinance regarding stream bank protection. That was Frontenac, Manchester, Brentwood, and Town and Country. And what they did eventually was something similar, removed either the buffer or the setback requirements, therefore reducing the extent of limitations on any improvements from 75 feet to 50 feet to roughly the 25 feet, the 50 feet, depending on which community had in there. But we found that other communities had made efforts to make some changes, noting that while we understand the purpose of this ordinance is to protect stream banks, but if those natural stream banks no longer exist, we're kind of protecting. There are other means to ensure that this, the altered stream bank is maintained, but that the stormwater entering that stream bank can be modified and sediments removed from going in. We looked at a map of the city of Olivet. These are the streams that are identified in the USGS map. And if you applied the buffer protection regulations, these are the properties that would be impacted by those streams. We had issues, apologize here. Here along Bond Price, we're applying the 75-foot or 50-foot setbacks to a concrete channel to protect the concrete channel virtually made it impossible to do any property improvements. This is not a flood zone ordinance. This is regarding to trying to protect natural stream banks. Well, if that stream bank now has been altered and is a concrete channel, the goal here is allow the property owner to utilize more of their property, but still provide enough space to put filters or sediment controls of stormwater going into those stream areas. It's funny here along Bond Price, the actual grade of the property, the ground of the property is lower than the wall of the stream channel. So as stormwater kind of goes through, it hits the wall of the stream channel. It doesn't go into the creek directly. It will go to an inlet that's further down in these individual properties. And in those cases, in those variances that have been granted to 3 properties along Bond Price Lane, the requirements were for them to put some BMP and some filter controls along the stormwater inlets, which in lieu did the exact same thing that the original intent of this ordinance was to do, and allowed our residents to use their properties even greater. Here you'll see in Dillman Industrial Park components of the stream that they're not there anymore. There's others here on Bond Hills in which there is no stream anymore. The easy question is, well, why not change the USGS maps? And we did look into that, and it requires a pretty significant process, and it's something we're willing to do, but it takes time. The other aspect that we looked at was, can we just adopt our own map? And given the resources we have, that might be a route that we will take in the future. Ms. Doty is working on importing a lot of this data into our base maps. And then instead of referring to a USGS map, we can refer to a city of Olivet adopted map as an effort to try to address this, but that takes a little bit more time to put together. That being said, what this amendment does is it still maintains the buffer requirements for a solid blue line, meaning a really natural creek, but I know we have none of these in Olivet. It still provides protection for any streams in Olivet that are still in their natural condition. And we have a couple of areas where they're at. It will provide a 25-foot buffer, and it's noted as an undisturbed natural vegetative buffer. If this ordinance does not change that. What this ordinance will do will provide an additional condition here that the commission through petition can waive the requirements for the undisturbed natural vegetative buffer if that stream no longer exists or it has been altered. And in doing so, the petitioner would have to show how they're going to provide the same stormwater purification and sediment controls as they would in any other way. And then if that stream does not physically exist, that no undisturbed natural vegetative buffer would be required. In addition to that, recognizing that in many cases, the USGS maps show streams that do not exist, the setback requirement would also be removed if the stream is in there, and also where we measure the the setback would be more consistent or give us a little bit more consistency on how that is applied. So those are the changes that this ordinance would do. And Mayor, if I can enter some of the items for the record, our 2006 comprehensive plan, the public hearing and the affidavit of publication on January 10th, 2022, the staff memorandum dated December 16th, 2021 to the PCDC, along with all its attachments, the Olivet Municipal Code and zoning map, and this presentation before the council on January 25th, 2022. And Mayor, that's all I have. I'd be glad to answer any specific questions.
Does anyone on the council have any questions?
I would like just some clarification. Because Carlos, a few years ago, we were dealing with the Fed and the state on a flood map and certain areas within our city where some people contacted us. They were concerned that their homes were still identified on a flood zone, and thus it cost them a heck of a lot more in homeowners insurance. And I understand that, you know, this is totally different, you know, with regards to what we're attempting to deal with the passage of this ordinance. But if there are no more solid blue lines, and if we are obviously, you know, streams that have dried up or they have their walls and barriers created, are those areas that 2 years ago that were being identified as flood zones no longer going to be? It was just a few homes, but are they no longer going to be flood zones themselves because we no longer have solid blue lines within our maps of water flow?
No, the best way I can address that is that the USGS maps have nothing to do with the floodplain maps. They're completely different, and whether they're identified as solid blue or dashed, it really doesn't have anything to do with the extent of whether it's in a floodplain or not. In most cases, there will be some correlation between the two, and they kind of go hand in hand. A good example is here in Bond Hills. The flood zone is actually within the channel of the creek, but because it's considered a creek, then this overlay applies to it. But they're two different things in there. You know, and I guess, yes, they are related, but this ordinance doesn't have, or at least the stream buffer protection ordinance doesn't dictate how the flood zones are being calculated.
Okay, thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions? I guess at this time, we'll open up to the public for any comments. Again, please state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less.
People want to raise their hand, I can move them over to speak. At this point, Mayor, I see no one, and no one's raising their hands. So it doesn't appear as that we have public comment on this.
All right, then we're going to close this public hearing. And
Okay.
as council for any kind of,
Carlos, could you, oh, here, I'll stop sharing. Yeah,
There you go.
there you go. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
do we have any other comments from the council?
No, sir.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve Bill 2965. Anyone care to give a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve Bill 2965, an ordinance amending Article 4 Land Development Requirements being part of the Chapter 420 Stream Buffer Protection Regulations of Title 4 Land Use of the Olivet Municipal Code regarding buffer and setback requirements.
Aaron, I'm sorry to interrupt, and Ms. Sondak, also, I have a mistake, a typo there. That should be bill number 2966, and my apologies on that.
I'd like
Okay.
to amend that to be bill number 2966.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't catch that either.
All right, we have a second?
Second.
All right, we go ahead and poll the council.
All right, Councilmember or Chairman Pro Tem Weil,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by action of the Olivet City Council. Bill number 2966 becomes ordinance 2738. Next is a first reading. I will stop sharing, sorry. Next is the first reading on bill number 2967, an ordinance of the city of Olivet, Missouri, amending the city of Olivet employee handbook by adding section 8.6 COVID-19 vaccine and testing. This is, I'll share my screen and bring that up. The council's had a number of conversations on potential policies. On January 11th at the meeting, the council tabled bill number 2964 that created a mandatory vaccination policy, and at that time asked staff to draft a policy that would allow for unvaccinated persons to be tested on a regular basis. And that is what is before you as a new bill this evening. This is the council. This is not the first time the council has seen a policy similar to this. Back in the you have looked at policies that were both mandatory, and you've looked at policies that have required vaccinations, or that have allowed vaccinations or testing for individuals. I would be happy to answer any questions on this draft.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I do.
Please.
It's not really a question, it's inquiring. Because we're going in a different direction, which I'm very happy to see. Because my role here is to make sure that the employees and management of our city continue to function and deliver services for the tax-paying citizens while providing those services with leadership that encourages a safe working environment and one that also fosters a positive, comfortable, collaborative working environment. And that's what retains employees. My questions, and I pose these to the city manager already. Before we adopt any policy, I would like to just understand and go over, and it does not have to be tonight, go over the costs to purchase 3-month supply of test kits, identify how many kits will be ordered, who we would purchase them from, the reliability of receiving test kits before running out of them, the risk of being on back order, and the expiration timeline for test kits from purchase to use. Because if we're going to go to a testing policy, I want to understand our cost.
I'm happy to address that. As Councilmember Waldman said, she did ask me this question prior, and I did take, we did have that, so I was prepared for this. Currently, I have, whether or not the council was going to do the a mandatory policy, vaccination policy, or was going to allow for testing of unvaccinated persons, we were going to be needing tests because of the exemptions for religious and medical reasons. So I have, the city currently is in possession of 60 tests. The 30 of those have an expiration date of in late June. The other 30 have an expiration date of November. There is some there are some emergency FDA approval to extend the expiration dates on these types of tests. Right now, I think it's only for the Bionox or Bionex. But at this point, we don't have that issue. If we continue to have 7 people who would be considered unvaccinated, there would be 7 tests a week. And so over the course of the of the 3 months, we would need 84 tests. And as I said, we have 60. I am, we're probably kind of paying a premium. We're paying about $15 per test right now. And that'll adjust itself as the market does, because they really should be closer to $10. So for the costs, if we think we're going to need to do that for the additional 24 that we would need for a 3-month supply, it comes to about $1,200 total cost.
For 3 months, for 3 months.
3 months.
So we're not just going to do this for 3 months. This is going to go on and on and on and on until we reach a higher level of vaccination across the country and across the world. So where is this money coming from? Because this is an unknown cost to us that we have not put into our budget. So where is this money going to come from?
Well, a couple of things that I would say. One is one thing that we know is everything changes, right? And so the idea of, how often we test, that's probably going to change. What we use to test, that's probably going to change. That's a part of the issue of putting in a policy, which stays relatively stagnant or static. And when you have kind of this kind of ever-changing thing. So if we're going to say, okay, everything's going to stay the same, and every 3 months it's going to cost us, say, $1,200. I think we can find that money. I mean, that's part of what it's to allow us, as you said earlier, councilperson, is to allow us to continue operations of the city. And we do have funding that we can use. The ARPA funding is something we could use towards this. I think we also have, I would look at some of our other accounts. I mean, I think it's something that we do. It would be a cost of doing business. I don't think, March, April, May, June, you got 4 months before the end of this fiscal year. So you're going to be talking, $1,300 or whatever, $1,350, however that would be more than that. But, I think we can absorb that in our budget. I don't think it's going to create an issue for us. I guess that's how I would answer that. I also think the pricing is going to go down. I think I'm purchasing these now at a time when they are not, the supply is not as plentiful.
Are any other questions or comments?
I have a comment, Mr. Mayor, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
Okay, firstly, during council discussions of this policy, I expressed myself in a way that caused concern among our staff. I sincerely apologize for this. I assure you that I think our staff is unmatched and value everyone's contribution to the city. I've taken this policy decision very seriously and given it a lot of consideration. In an effort to show that, I asked your indulgence while I give a bit of detail of my thinking. I believe reasonable people, including scientists, may disagree on science. Determining theories in science really is very much like the courts with findings of fact or evidence and opinions in law or theory. Evidence is the result of observations, and in this context can be considered facts. A theory is a way of interpreting those facts that allow you to make correct predictions. To illustrate, I'll use science, which is with far less emotional baggage. Physicists, even today, disagree on what you might think is settled science, often referred to as the law of gravity. It really is just a theory, and there are observations that might indicate it isn't completely accurate. Namely, observations you may have heard of called dark matter and dark energy. These are just names given to possible theories that explain the observational phenomenon contradicting our current theory of gravity. but which, if true, mean they account for 95% of the total stuff in the universe. That's a huge discrepancy for a theory called a law. But still, if you throw a ball up in the air, it's very nearly 100% likely it will fall back down, but it's not 100%. So the question for me about our vaccination policy is not about disagreements on science, but when should my judgment on the science, or when should my judgment on the science supersede someone else's? Many of the city ordinances state the council determined the ordinance is promoting the public health, safety, welfare, and morals. That's just a standard statement. This, to me, means the council makes decisions all the time on public health and safety that are enforceable, like where to place a stop sign. The policy under consideration certainly relates to public health and safety. And I have an ethical responsibility to do the best I can when making that determination, even if my determination differs with someone else's. So in my view, if I determine that the public health and safety is improved with a vaccine mandate, I'm obligated to support that in policy. As we all know, and the city manager just said, the pandemic changes the facts rapidly, and much has just transpired in the month or so since we've been considering this policy. And I believe that the potential to lose your job weighs heavily on someone's decision to be transparent. Given this rapidly changing environment, I believe transparency is more effective in fostering improved public health and safety than a mandate. This does not mean I've changed my view of the pandemic science that, all other things being equal, vaccination, boosters, and masks will produce better public health outcomes. And as always, I'm willing to have a friendly, dispassionate, scientific discussion of why I hold this view. Or for that matter, my views on dark matter or dark energy. Thank you. Thank you
Mr.
very
Mayor,
much.
and I would like to express myself as well on this matter beyond what I asked of the city manager earlier. Mr. Mayor, council, did we need to go back to the drawing board and take into consideration the real science of today versus political science to decide the city's vaccination policy? No, we did not. As Councilman Carl said, we continued its due diligence mindfully, not politically. Honestly, for 22 years, it's during times of development that I get personal phone calls and texts from Olivet constituents. This time, it was on the discussion of a vaccination policy that resulted in citizens' attention and conversations with me. I shared my thoughts on the pros and cons of a mandate versus a testing and masking policy, because I believe COVID is now an endemic, not a pandemic or not an epidemic. Clearly, they supported the council's moving towards a mandated policy. Clearly, we saw it 10% different. We saw it differently. What would I do personally? I would do a mandated vaccination policy. Why? Because it's proven vaccinations work, and those infected and vaxxed are not overwhelming our hospital systems. And there are people that have true health emergencies that need our hospital systems. However, there is no I in the word team. Olivet government is a team with 5 elected council members and 76 employees. If 7 or 8 are not vaccinated, it's 10% of our workforce. Yes, this concerns me, but I'm not here to be heavy-handed. As I noted earlier, I am here to make sure the employees and management of our city continue to function and deliver services for the taxpayers, citizens, while providing those services with leadership that encourages a safe working environment and one that also fosters a positive, comfortable, collaborative working environment, because this is what retains employees. Allowing your city manager to run the day-to-day operations with sufficient manpower to remain the strong municipal government we are for the people and businesses of Olivet, that's number one. Yes, our lives are forever changed. We must all learn to live with COVID and its mutations. It is no longer an if, it is a when with COVID. The difference is those vaccinated are less likely to end up in hospitals or die from COVID. I have family members and I have friends who are not vaccinated, and I seek to understand why. I won't allege political science mentality of unvaccinated Olivet employees like council was accused of, but I hope a loved one will convince you to get vaccinated like I do with my loved ones. My position is not based on exhaustion. My position is not based on political science. And my position is not based on an 8-minute speech at a previous meeting. It is based on science. And I am grateful that scientists developed and continue to develop COVID vaccines and COVID therapeutic pharmaceutical medications. Divisive behaviors dictate we have to learn how to live with COVID, while science continues to study and develop more therapeutics. I end my remarks with this concern. As I've said before, I've seen firemen from other municipalities at the grocery store not wearing their masks properly or not wearing them at all. I ask that if we adopt a mask and testing policy, which eliminates the possible loss of your employment, I hope that uniformed Olivet firemen, paramedics, and police officers will always wear their masks properly in public. And I emphasize all Olivet employees should wear a mask properly when interacting with our public. This is what I hope, this is what I ask, and this is what I expect of our employees. And I expect compliance, and I expect the city manager to be able to deal with appropriate action if these protections and these ways of wearing masks and being out in public in your uniform while you're on the job are not taken. So thank you very much.
Do we have any other comments? Okay.
I've got a comment.
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank Councilmember Wallman and Councilmember Carl for such nice comments that you made. I looked at some information that was provided to me about the COVID vaccines and the issues that we're dealing with right now. And I spoke with experts in the field, and they were from the medical field. And they said everyone should be vaccinated and boosted. Not only did that happen, in the last 3 weeks, I know 8 people that have come down with COVID. It's 8 people that I know of. 4 were vaccinated, 4 were unvaccinated. And the ones that were vaccinated, they were boosted. They got COVID, they got sick, they got better. The 4 that were unvaccinated are no longer with us. So I am for the mandate, but I will compromise. I think that we should do a testing, and the city manager should direct everyone to wear a mask when they're in public and when they're with other employees. I'd like to see them be tested more than once a week. I'd like to see it twice a week. But I'll leave that up to the city manager. She runs the city, and Ms. Sondag will make the right decision. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just would like to echo my sentiments of my other 3 council members. I think that they Their comments are thought provoking. It shows that they put a lot of time and effort into them. And I still believe strongly in the mandate. But as Councilmember Knox said, I also believe in compromise and we want what's best for our city. We value our employees, we trust our employees. But I think it is a public health concern. And I truly believe that it's just not out in public, but it's in the office. We want to create the safest work environment for our community, for the residents that come there. It's all employees and not just one department. And I hope that the 7 employees that this does affect it currently, that they will reconsider if and when they will take the time to set up aside some of the issues that maybe we brought up by calling it a mandate or starting off discussing about a mandate versus a policy. And when you're ready, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. I wanted to say this. I also am in favor of the mandate. I think people need to understand just what it's like for someone to have this disease, this virus, and be very sick. My best friend got this virus, and he called me on the phone with preparations for his death because he was certain that he was going to die. He couldn't breathe. He cried. He begged for me to pray for him. And it was agonizing to hear a man that I've known for 30, 35 plus years of my life thinking he was going to die. I've had friends who have gotten this virus who are no longer with me. These were healthy people. And they were waiting for the vaccine. And they didn't get it. They didn't get it in time. And now you have people who have the option to take it, knowing all the well what can happen if you don't get it or you don't get it in time, what can happen. What has happened here with this council, however, is a true willingness, like my fellow council members have said, to bend, to compromise, because we need everybody on the team. And we don't want to be an iron fist. But again, I beg those who have not taken the shot, who have not had the vaccine, please get it. It's not that someone out there is trying to muscle you into doing something. It is scientifically proven that it is helping. That's all I have to say about that. I'll entertain a motion.
Can you post it, please, City Manager?
I believe if you want to take action on this.
No, this is a first reading only, folks.
We're doing
Yeah,
The
first and
first reading
second.
only.
No,
Yeah,
we're
if-
doing first and second, we had discussed.
Okay, so you need to set aside. Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, could you set aside the regular rules?
Make, if the chairman pro tem would like to make a motion to set aside regular rules.
I'd like to
and
make a
read it for
motion
a
to,
second time.
I'd like to make a motion to set aside regular rules and read this ordinance for a second time.
Second.
All right, can we poll the council?
Councilmember Weil, or Chairman
Yes.
Pro Tem Weil, Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes,
Councilmember Knox,
Yes,
Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, it's been set aside for the second time, and if the mayor would like to open up a public hearing on that, now we'll have a public hearing. And then the council, they'll close the public hearing, and then you'll have, I will read it for a second time, and then you can have a discussion and another motion.
I would like to open this now for a public hearing.
If anyone on the Zoom would like to speak to this, you can just raise your hand. Well, raise your hand on Zoom.
Do we have anybody?
Mayor, I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion.
You want to close the public hearing?
Oh, yes, I would like to close the public hearing, please.
Okay, and then I'm going to read it for a second time. Bill number 2967, an ordinance of the city of Olivet, Missouri, amending the city of Olivet employee handbook by adding section 8.6 COVID-19 vaccine and testing.
Mr. Mayor, I'd
Um,
like to make a motion.
Second,
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Bill number 2967, an ordinance of the city of Olivet, Missouri, amending the city of Olivet employee handbook by adding section 8.6 COVID-19 vaccine and testing.
I thought you did the motion from her. Second,
All right, can we poll the council?
Councilmember Knox,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes,
Councilmember Waldman,
yes,
Chairman Pro Tem,
Yes,
Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by action of the Olivet City Council, bill number 2967 becomes ordinance 2739. Next, item 11 is bill number 2968. This is an ordinance to repeal and replace in its entirety chapter 105 elections, article 1 elections and nominations. This is a first reading. I will share the screen so that you can see. As the council is aware, we've worked on this at a couple of work sessions, and the goal was to create a policy that clearly articulated, what was the general policy, what were some, and provide staff and candidates and the public with additional clarity on the nominating procedure. And I think really what you successfully did here was simply clarify the language and the steps for being a candidate for city council. And on behalf of staff, thank you for that and taking this up. And I think it's on behalf of the residents as well. It makes this process much more accessible when reading it. I did realize we are, because there were a lot of reworks within this, we did decide to just do a repeal and replace. But I should have put in the old policy. I apologize. I'll do that for the second reading so that you have the comparison. Are there any questions on this?
no, ma'am.
Okay. Next, then we have resolution 2022-216, a resolution amending the city of Olivet procurement policy by adding language specific to disadvantaged business enterprise goals. And I will bring that up as the council is aware, you have been working on procurement policy that will, in essence, level the playing field with regard to the ability for minority and women-owned businesses to have an opportunity to bid on the work that become on the public projects that we have. The language was inserted into the existing procurement policy, mainly because I think it makes it just easier to find and actually makes it part of what department heads and staff look at when procuring products and services and professional services. The changes here are under the determining the lowest and best responsible and responsive bidder, and we add in that the bidders will be will note whether they are certified and listed on Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Directory as a MBE or WBE, and whether at least 20% of the workforce providing the contracted services consist of workers generally classified as members of minorities and or female workers. What this does is it has staff putting right out there, we're gonna have to ask the question. And so that becomes then part of the evaluation of the bids that come in. We then also have added in our public work projects, that same language. So that is now part of the review process for those projects. And then a separate section that is added that sets actually, and this is kind of where we start setting the goals of for the contract. So the first couple of things that I discussed were really just requesting that information and putting it out there to get that information. And now we get to the goals section where we establish goals for contracts and amounts. We just talk about public-private partnerships and the goals that we'd establish in there. And there's also an overall goal for the city for contracts. And so there's kind of three different goals that are in here. One is an overall, and then two are specific to different projects. So the idea being that it's not just in those big construction projects or those public-private partnerships, but it's in all of the, we're looking at the fairness in all of our contracts. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask a question. And I'm not asking the question because I want to make an allegation. I'm asking the question for clarity. Because I know that this happens out there. There are entities that go ahead and get their WBE, MBE. I have a wife. I know the process that she had to go through. And I also know that sometimes there are businesses that identify as WBE, MBE, and they don't do good jobs. My concern, and my only concern, because as I said, I have a WBE. How do we make sure? What are our measurables? What do we look at to make sure that as we look to expand our WB, MBE inclusion in what happens in our city, how do we make sure that we are going to be dealing with reputable WBEs and MBEs as we look through that process of determining who we're going to hire to do a project?
I think what we,
Also, let me add to that also. What are we doing now? Regardless if it's MBE or WBE, how do you determine if it is a good company now?
Fair question. Fair question.
what we do is, and that's why you kind of look at this section of how, what are you looking at to determine that best responsible and responsive bidder? Did they respond clearly to the request? What's their experience on similar jobs? What's their current workload, or how far out are they? What's their capacity, to be able to get the goods? You ask for examples of their work, just like anybody else. You ask and you say, give us your references. Tell us who else you've worked with. You can, depending on the amount of the cost of that project, you may be asking that they're able to secure financial, that they're going to have the right financial resources, and they're going to be able to be bonded and get the other things that are required. And then so that's just whether they're MBE or WBE is just another thing that you're looking at. And I think really the majority of our procurement is smaller amounts, right? You know, we don't have a lot of really big projects. They come along, but we have basically, you know, you're dealing with smaller to middle size kind of contracts. And that's really where you can make your change, because what tends to happen in any business and in any, you know, any person is you tend to go to the same people, you know. And so what this is going to require us, you know, department heads, more particularly, and not me as much as I don't buy that much, is, you know, they're going to have to expand who they ask and who they get quotes from and who they get bids from. So, you know, so maybe instead of just calling somebody and saying, you know, this is the business, this is who I use for this type of work, maybe what you're going to do is you're going to go to that DBE directory, and you're going to find other people that do that work. And so you're calling. And so it's just expanding the pool. It's kind of what we've been trying to do with employees as well. Where we advertise, what skills, you know, we're looking at, and we're not in any way decreasing quality of employees. We're just expanding that candidate pool. And I see this as a lot the same way.
Great. Because I think that the fair thing is that you vet all your contractors the same way, no more, no less.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't disagree with you, Mayor. I don't disagree.
All right.
Okay, that was a first read. This is a resolution.
Yeah, that's a resolution.
That's right. We passed the procurement with a resolution. Sorry. I had originally had this as an ordinance, and I looked and I saw the last time we did it as a resolution. So,
So, Mr. Mayor, I have no problem.
I'll get it up here. I'll share it.
Okay.
With it. I apologize. I was thinking that was the first reading. That was my fault.
It's all right.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to request that we approve Resolution 2022-216, a resolution of the City of Olivet, Missouri, amending the Olivet procurement policy by adding language specific to disadvantaged business enterprise goals.
We have a second.
Second,
All right. Let's poll the council, please.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox,
yes,
Chairman Pro Tem,
Yes,
Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed. The next item. Oh, I'll stop sharing here for a second. Sorry. The next item before the council is resolution 2022-217. I just want to point out, you just passed the first resolution of 2022. Now you're on the second one. 2022 217, a resolution of the City of Olivet, Missouri, approving a First Amendment to the cost share agreement for the Centennial Greenway.
Okay, I was seeing that it was marked 2021, but that's only on the number. On the actual resolution, you do reflect 2022. Okay.
What you have here is in 2020, when we were all younger, thinner, well, not chief. The council approved a cost sharing agreement with Great Rivers Greenway for the construction of the Centennial Greenway. And it basically, that's the agreement that specifically kind of outlines the handling of costs for the design and construction of the three segments and who pays what and how we do the reimbursements. In 2021, we were notified that we were successful in a grant application for the Transportation Alternative Program grant for the section of the Centennial Greenway that's within Indian Meadows. The receipt of this grant necessitates the amendment to the initial cost share agreement, and that is because now we have another entity who is going to be paying funds towards this. And it changes how the city pays, how we get reimbursed from the federal government, and then how we charge that back to Great Rivers Greenway, because Great Rivers Greenway is in essence for this grant.
This is $1 million grant, right?
It's $1 million grant. Yep.
Yeah.
And so that is basically, and that should, I apologize, that resolution should say in, that was in 20, yeah. I forgot to look for the date of when we submitted it. We got it. I think it was in June of 2020. I will change that resolution, should say June 2020. We applied for the grant. We received notification that we got it in April of 6, and now we are just getting to the point of amending this. This was reviewed. This very wordy document was reviewed by Paul Martin, city attorney. I don't know, Paul, if you have anything you want to add, maybe a word to it.
All I can say is that the agreement is as confusing as you would think it would be. And yes, I've reviewed it and I think it's all right.
Paul, did you make any changes to it at all, or you were satisfied with the exact language that you saw?
No, I did not make any changes at all. I was
Okay.
satisfied with it.
Thank you.
He did the initial cost share agreement and the initial contract with GRG. There was a lot more back and forth.
Yeah.
So this is really just dealing with the flow of the funding between the federal government to the city and the billing and how that gets paid.
All right. Well, given that this is over in my neck of the woods, I'm very happy to see this happening within my subdivision connecting the parks. I'll go ahead and request that we approve resolution 2022-217, a resolution of the city of Olivet, Missouri, approving a first amendment to the cost sharing agreement for the Centennial Greenway.
Second.
Second, okay.
I'll second, or did someone second it already?
Yes,
You can third it.
I'll third it.
I'll fourth it.
Right on.
Councilmember Knox,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
yes.
Motion passed. Thank you. Just so you know, we don't expect to go out for bid for that section of the Centennial Greenway until September of this year. So the construction won't occur until 2023.
When are they going to go and
Um,
start talking with the residents with regard to the temporary easement? When is that going down, Barb?
We are in the final stages of the environmental review portion. And once that review is done, it has a lot of different aspects to it. There's about 4 different aspects to that review. Once that's complete, and we anticipate it being done within a month or so. After that occurs and that gets reviewed by East West Gateway and MoDOT, we will then be given what they call the A date. And that's when we can start talking right away. You can't talk right away with them until you get that. And once that happens, we'll be going back out to the residents and meeting with the residents and with official offers, et cetera.
Okay, thank you much.
Item 14 is appointments to the Economic Development Commission and possible appointment to the Park and Recreation Commission. I will bring it up. And I will share the screen as the council is aware, because you did it on last week. You interviewed 4 candidates for 2 vacancies on the Economic Development Commission. And we anticipate, and I'm anticipating that you will appoint these folks.
Mr. Mayor, I will make the motion since this is the committee to which, or commission to which I'm a liaison, but I'm going to wait and see if there's any other comments before I do so.
Do we have any comments?
Barb, were these people notified and
Yes.
accepted? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Carl, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I would like to say we had some very excellent candidates interview. It was more, I think, than I've seen interview for the Economic Development Commission, and I've been on it as the liaison for quite some time. So it was great to see people being that interested in the city and wanting to contribute their talents. It was a tough decision for us, but I would like to nominate or appoint and recommend for appointment of Becky Jacobs to the Economic Development Commission with a term to expire July 31st, 2024, and Spencer Talbot to the Economic Development Commission with a term to expire July 31st, 2023.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, let's poll the council.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes, with that vibrato, yes.
Councilmember Knox,
Yes,
Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, Becky Jacobs and Spencer Talbot are appointed to the Economic Development Commission. And then is there an appointment to the Park and Recreation Commission?
So as the liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission, I wanted to share with everyone that, we all did, we interviewed 5 people last August because we had an opening at that time. And we pulled the video of those applications as well as the applications themselves. And I would like at this time to nominate Bill Henson. I believe it's Hanson to serve with the term that I believe that expires on July 31st, 2022.
Second, if it needs to be.
All right, let's poll the council.
Councilmember Waldman,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox,
yes.
Chairman Pro Tem,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Hey, congratulations. And
Can we just notate for those listening that when these expired, that it's just a conversation, and that these are the dates of the terms that they're filling, and there isn't really there's not another process at this time to go through.
All right.
okay, would you like to say that?
I just did. Now you know how tired I am.
Bill-
Okay,
Bill Hanson is on, so congratulations.
that was really for his sake.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he
I
was
thought that too.
22, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
we didn't just bring that up. in the conversation.
You'll get more than a couple months opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. Now we're at item 15, hearing from citizens. Anybody wants to say anything? Just raise your hand.
Come on, Mr. Hanson, I want to hear from you.
Okay.
Leave him alone.
Oh,
Let
he
him-
raised his hand. Peer pressure.
Yeah.
Oh, Missy.
All right, I'll be promoting you, Bill, to the,
You're a little troublemaker over there.
it should be.
You're just
Is it
figuring that
coming
out.
through? Okay.
Yeah, Max, after 22 years, you're just figuring that out.
There he comes. All right. Okay.
Sorry, I was muted there.
That's okay.
I just want to thank everyone for, well, for nominating and supporting me in this. I'm very excited. I've been wanting to work with either on city council or on a board for a while now. And I just greatly appreciate this opportunity.
Well, we're looking
You're
forward to
gonna be
having you.
busy.
Sounds good.
Bill, Beverly Tucker Knight will be reaching out to you shortly to kind of just to go do a little introduction orientation to the commission and get you all the materials that you need.
Sounds great.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
All right, I'm going to come over here and make this one, move them back to the attendee. All right. Review and approval of minutes. You have several sets of minutes. You have minutes from the regular meeting of December 14th, 2021, January 11th, 2022, and from the work sessions of January 4th, 2022 and January 18th, 2022. I'll stop sharing the screen. I'm sorry. Shouldn't have had that. I should have stopped that earlier. Are there any corrections or changes or anything that anyone would like to make to these meeting minutes?
I did not see any, and I'm happy to make a motion.
Okay.
Please make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of December 14th, 2021, January 11th, 2022. I think that's a typo. No, yeah. Oh, January 11th,
2022. Yeah, that's a typo.
2022, and minutes from work sessions, January 4th, 2022, and January 18th, 2022.
Second. All right, let's poll the council, please.
Pool in the council.
There's that radio
Councilmember Knox,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes,
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes,
Chairman Pro Tem,
Yes,
Mayor.
Yes.
All right, next is the city attorney's report.
Mayor, I have no report. I would like to compliment the council on the work that you've gotten done tonight. It's a culmination of a lot of hard work, and I think you should be applauded for it. I also don't have any need for a closed session. Happy to answer questions or address matters if the council has any issues.
no, sir.
Paul, you don't have a need for executive session, is that correct?
No,
Paulie, what's going on with the lawsuit that we have against Hatfield and our ability to express ourselves? And
we are waiting for the Supreme Court to issue an opinion, and their next hand down date for decisions is February 8th, I believe.
okay,
So that'll be the next opportunity to see if they have finished up that particular case by then.
okay.
But
Thanks,
that's all
Paul.
we're waiting for.
All right, thanks, Paulie.
I'd like to say something to Paul. You know, you're applauding us or whatever, but I think that you've given us some tremendous support, and you, I want to say poor Paul has to write and rewrite and double check all of these things, but it's been a lot of the issues that we talked about tonight or ordinances and policies. We couldn't have done it without your professionalism, and I thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Wait, did anyone know?
I knew you were gonna do it. I knew you
Did
were gonna-
anyone notice, I wrote this down at the beginning, that Ron Johnson, and I know Barb knows this, worked 22 years and is retiring on 2/22/22.
Yes,
That is-
recognized it, yes.
Yeah,
That's
I didn't
his-
notice
that
that.
was-
Well, that's,
That was his goal. That was his
That is so
But,
cool.
but that wasn't the first time. Al Waddell worked for 36 years and retired on 9/9 of 99.
Wow, you're bringing up a
So
name from the
4/9
past.
is 36.
Yep, and I was.
Oh, wow, wow.
Yeah, and I was
Okay.
married May 3rd, 1997. It means nothing.
And you just put that on public record, don't tell your wife.
Good
The
night,
manager's not gonna
everyone.
be happy, Sydney. The manager's not gonna be.
Oh.
That's all
Oh,
right,
that's
Cindy.
so
There's a lot of people that seem to have gotten married in May. Hint, hint. Me? Yeah. so it must be a marriage month.
No, the
Okay.
numbers mean
I
nothing.
think we can
Not
stop
marriage.
recording.
I will approve those minutes when they come out.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good
Good night,
night,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you.
Night.